hashtag live. If you are catching the replay, hashtag replay. It's very late for a lot of people, but those who are able to make it live or catching the replay, thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to talk about like the harsh truth, really, the reality about nonprofit growth and why so many nonprofits will be stuck in financial instability, where you tend to see other nonprofits or bigger nonprofits doing well, effortlessly. Well, it seems effortless, attracting funding, scaling their programs, right, and making more of an impact. It's because they're able to have a footprint you don't have. They're able to generate a level of revenue that you're not able to generate. But then the reality is that your nonprofit's revenue will never outgrow your level of execution. Meaning, if you're not doing the work that you need to do to ensure that you're bringing the revenue or generating the revenue for your nonprofit organization, nothing's going to come through. You're not going to see that revenue come through. So, really, the level of execution that occurs within your team, your leadership team or development team will matter significantly, because like questions like why you're not growing, like you need to start asking yourself, are you consistently, and when I say consistently, are you consistently executing proven funding strategies or just reacting to financial crises, right? Because then the thing that happens is that whenever there's a need for revenue or there is a problem, people tend to react, but that's not the time to try to generate revenue in your organization. You need to actually execute or have generating revenue generating activity on a consistent basis. And the other question is like, do you have repeatable systems within your organization in place for fundraising and donor engagement? Right? Donor engagement is really important. So skipping that does not make sense. And another question I want you to ask yourself today, are you just hoping that the next grant, event, or major donor will fix your funding problem? Because essentially, like, you have to come to terms that, like, these things are not the answer, right? Because your nonprofit really is never going to outgrow your level of execution. Now, I'm going to put that in the comments on Facebook because that's just the harsh truth of it, whether you like it or not. It is what it is. Your nonprofit will never outgrow your level of execution. So if you're taking action or if you aren't executing in any way, hi, it's Black Girls Know Best here. Hi, how are you? If you are not doing the work that it needs to get your nonprofit to the next level, then that's a problem. Now, today I saw um, uh, an executive director of an organization I've been in contact with since last year. She was at this small developer workshop as well, right? She is networking. Now, if you're not out there networking and trying to get funders and stakeholders to know who you are and understand what you do, then you are doing it wrong. Like, you have to get uncomfortable and start executing. Like, being busy is not an excuse. Like, I kid you not. Being busy is not like, you know how many times I hear people tell me, oh, I have a full-time job. I don't have time. Listen, full transparency. I have a full-time job. I have two children. I have my business. At one point, I had a full-time job, a part-time job, my business, and two children. Like, but you won't hear me talking about I can't do it because I don't have time. I structure my time in a way that the actions that I want to take or the things that I want are actually happening. Because to me, the excuse doesn't make sense, because my goal has always been to be the best version of myself, and I'm not going to excuse myself out of the vision that I have for myself. So you really have to start understanding how you taking action or you having a level of execution within your organization or the things that you do in your life matter just as much as anything. You can't just hope for funding. You need to start having systems that attract it. A lot of nonprofits that are having a hard time, they're not failing because they lack passion or because their cause isn't important. They're failing or having a hard time because they're operating in constant reaction mode, right? They're always chasing urgent funding instead of planning for long-term sustainability. And that's an issue, right? And they're also having a hard time because they don't have systems in place for fundraising, donor retention, or operational efficiency. Now, if a nonprofit doesn't have these things in place, what's happening is that your nonprofit is constantly reactive and it's falling like in a place where grants, you are one grant away from closing your doors. You are one donor away from having to close your doors because, like, I meet too many people that say they're self-funded. Why? Why are you self-funded? Like, you could be building these relationships. Yes, networking takes work, it takes time, but you could be networking with people and building relationships and making asks so you can start getting the funds to actually implement the programs and services that your nonprofit says it provides. But you're not doing it because it feels uncomfortable. That's a problem to me. And the other thing that I'm noticing, a lot of nonprofits, smaller nonprofits, are not doing well because they're ignoring the data and the growth metrics that will help them improve, that will help them get better, right? They don't even know what's working or failing because they're not tracking it. There's a reason that there are a lot of corporations and organizations that say they are data driven. Because if you're not looking at the data and the metrics, then what are you working towards? Because you say you're helping the youth, but you don't even know what they want. Like, you're providing services, don't even know what they need, but you're doing it because it feels good. Like, you need to start looking at data and key growth metrics in a way that makes sense so it can drive the actions that you're taking so you can stop wasting your time. Because at the end of the day, I'm not in the business of wasting my time. I don't want you to waste your time, okay? Because then one, me and the data and giving you information, like I love doing that. According to Nonprofit Quarterly, 80% of nonprofits actually have a hard time with financial instability because they're relying too heavily on short-term funding. Now, short-term funding, what that's going to look like is one-time grant donation or one-time donations, right? That's short-term. Grant, short-term. It's not long-term because grants usually have a time limit on them, right? It's not like you're building a consistent stream of revenue that can support the work that your nonprofit organization is doing. So these are things I want you to start looking at. You need to start having a sustainable or long-term funding strategy that can support the work that you're doing. Because what happens when at the end of 18 months, this grant is done and it doesn't get renewed? What happens then? Then you're stuck in a position where you're going to have to tell your staff that was working on this project, well, this was a short-term project, you got to go. So this person, imagine the level of stress in this climate that we're living in where eggs are $6, $7, $8. You're having to tell this person, hey, listen, you don't have a job anymore because I didn't do my job. I didn't fundraise enough. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do as a leader of this organization to secure funding so the work could continue so we could meet and accomplish our mission. Like, you're gonna have to lose your job because I didn't do my job. Like, do you see how that sounds? Like, essentially, I'm gonna need people to stop excusing their level of not taking action. Like, mediocrity is not a real, listen, you can't excuse mediocrity. You can't excuse like inconsistency because you have people's livelihoods also in your hand, and you need to start taking that seriously and understanding that your lack of action is causing your nonprofit to have a hard time. Now, there are other studies that show that nonprofits that actually have recurring donations and relationship-based funding strategy are able to raise 2 times to 3 times more than those who don't. Now, imagine if you're able to build relationships with organizations or partners or stakeholders, whatever it is, donors, you're able to have those relationships and you're building engagement, you're outreaching, you're like you have this relationship. What happens is they feel more comfortable giving to you. Hey, Keisha, how are you? Keisha said, is it lack of action or lack of delegation? Now, it depends on the situation. Sometimes it can be lack of action because the person, like in their mind, they have a mindset, okay, this is what I need to do, but not realizing what's the purpose of what you're doing. Do you even have an intention for what you're doing? Are you wasting your time? And some people don't want to delegate because they want to feel like they're saving everybody. They want to do the work themselves and they're saying they're burnt out. If you feel burnt out, let it go. Let somebody else do it. If you don't want to let anybody else do it because they don't know how, then you need to start creating the systems on the back end. Like creating the systems, what that looks like is having standard operating procedures in place. So when somebody steps in, you documented the processes so well that people that come in, they're looking at your standard operating procedures. You're going through onboarding and training for 1 to 2 weeks, right? And you have these documents in place, they can look at your process and be like, okay, this is how we do it in this organization. This is the language that I need to use. I have something to follow. Like that's how you start delegating. If you don't have any systems or any structures in place, then it makes it very difficult for you to even delegate. Like, what's the point? Because then somebody comes in February, right? Now you train this person, you let this person know everything, they're taking notes. And in March, this person says, I don't think this is the job for me, right? Everything you told them was never documented. Now you hire somebody in May and you have to repeat everything you told this person 2 months before because you are and you leave some things out. You don't remember what you said. It's inconsistent. So it's like you're starting the whole process over. There is a reason, like the students in the nonprofit navigator, they have to work on SOPs. There's a reason that I put that in place because with nonprofit organizations, that lack of system and structure is gonna cause them to experience burnout one way or the other. And what happens is like they tend to focus on things that don't matter because they are running around like chickens, like with their head off. Okay, so and that's something I do not want for you. Like you need to understand that your nonprofit needs to have some structure in place so you can focus on the actions that matter. Because then like Keisha said, is it lack of action or lack of delegation? It can be both sometimes because some people don't know what actions to take. They pretend they do because they just want to look busy, or they don't know how to delegate because they don't have the systems in place or the processes in place to ensure that they can delegate the work that they're doing. Because the one thing that with delegation, you need to know exactly the actions you need to take, but then how are you going to know what actions to take? You don't even have a strategic plan in place. You don't even know what you're doing. Like, and that's why, like, I don't mind calling people to the carpet because there's nothing worse than coming and pretending you know what you're doing and then only to realize 2 to 3 years later you have no idea what you're doing. And oftentimes I will say, it's okay. When I started in business, did I know what I was doing? No, I did not. But I took action, messy action, and then adjusted later. But some people refuse to take action and just continue operating in just this chaos and fake busyness. And only 2 to 3 years later to have the same problem they had 2 to 3 years before. Okay. Now, as a leader, as a nonprofit leader, I'm going to need you to start prioritizing building diversified revenue streams. And I talk about relationships and I talk about recurring donations. And I need you to start looking at different ways to start building diversified revenue streams for your nonprofit organization. Because one thing that's been happening this year is that you're noticing you're one grant away from closing your doors. You're one policy change away from not being able to operate or being able to seek certain government grants or government contracts or certain funding because these things, um, because of a policy change, you can lose them overnight, right? So I do think that diversifying your revenue streams as a nonprofit organization, even in your personal life, is one factor to long-term financial health. I know if you joined me at the beginning, you heard me talking about where I was all day from 9 to 5, the small development workshop I took. That's one way in my personal life. I want to I want to have long-term financial success because I don't want it to only be my business or whatever else. I also want, if I'm purchasing real estate, I also want to develop property as well. So I want to learn these skills. Now, okay, I'm gonna learn it. Like I said, I learned skills, project management. I'm actually in a course trying to get my project management certificate. I've directed and managed projects before, but like I always develop my skills because I understand capacity, right? Organizations have something that's called capacity. Skills is included. I want to make sure that me, Stacy, I have the knowledge and skills to continue educating the people I work with because I know my stuff. I don't want to share information and not know what I'm talking about. Like, I'm gonna learn it. You best believe I'm gonna learn it. Okay, but I improve myself and continue building my knowledge and skills as well. So let's get into some real world examples of why these things I talked about matter. And then after that, I'm gonna start closing off because I'm not gonna lie, I'm tired. Okay, yeah, I'm tired. So now we're gonna talk about why some nonprofits scale and others stay stuck. Now, there are a few things I wrote down in my notes. I always have my notes handy. So the first thing I have is that a lot of nonprofits are focusing on short-term wins. Okay, they stay stuck in survival mode because they're constantly chasing the next event. They're constantly chasing the next grant. They're constantly chasing the next donor and never thinking beyond the next 30 days. Oh, we got this grant on April 30th. It's dropping on June 30th, but then we're gonna relax because we have the funds. And then not deadline, but the end of the cycle of the grant or whatever, the end of the period, the life cycle of the grant is coming, and they start panicking. Oh my God, we don't have money to pay your staff. We don't have this, we don't have that. There's a reason. You didn't even think beyond the next 30 days or beyond the next year. Like, one event, one grant, one donor should not be the end all be all. Like you need to start thinking long term. Like these things may be wins in the moment, but they are short term. They are not what determines the sustainability and the oh, my brain not working, and the longevity. There we go. There's a word, the longevity of your organization. Okay. So let's say you're focusing on one event only, a fundraiser, right? You're working and you host a massive gala every year. Now you're able to raise like you're able to raise a few $1,000s, but you're already running out of money because when you look at everything, you really just broke even because you had to pay the vendors. You didn't work on the relationship to get any kind of in-kind donations. Like it wasn't enough, right? Because, and you're realizing after the event, oh my God, we still don't have enough money. The reason for that is because your funding strategy depended on one big event instead of building multiple revenue streams that could ensure that your nonprofit was secure enough to not feel out of whack, right? Now, you could develop corporate sponsorship programs that bring in $5,000 per month every month, and that could help create revenue stability because you're focusing on recurring predictable income. Just like I talk about recurring donations, like see if there's a corporation that supports your mission that aligns with your mission that you could bring in that sponsorship every month. It doesn't have to be that amount, but I say shoot for a high number. If it's a corporation, they're a big corporation, or let's say like they're a philanthropic organization, shoot for a big number because then go for 2K. If they say we can only do 1,000, guess what? You didn't even expect $0 from them. Shoot high. Okay, shoot high. Because one thing I don't like is seeing people, oh, can you donate $25? And they're going to a corporation. Listen, you better ask for more money. If they say they cannot, that's something else, but you better ask for more. Because then what are you gonna say? No. You weren't planning to ask anyway. So go ahead and ask for 500, 1,000, 2,000, whatever it is, ask for more. Because listen, I kid you not, when was it? Last year, I went and I was shooting my shot with this organization and asked for a sponsorship for $10,000. When I realized I could have asked for 30K, I was so pissed at myself. I went for 10K to ask for a sponsorship for a program that a nonprofit I was supporting or helping um, needed because they needed the funds. They didn't have it. I asked for the exact amount. When I realized I could have asked for more, I'm like, oh my God. But the point of the matter is you gotta ask. And that's where I want you to come from. Corporations, businesses, they actually have the money to give. But if you don't build a relationship with them, like they're not gonna just give it to you. Build a relationship with them. Like I had breakfast slash coffee with someone yesterday, and I'm fundraising for a philanthropic organization I'm a member of. And I just asked, hey, can your company sponsor us? He's like, send me the information. Okay, that's it. But this was the second time I was meeting with this person because I'm continuously communicating with these people. And that's what it is. You have to start building relationships as a nonprofit leader because at the end of the day, these relationships are going to help you grow your organization in ways that you did not expect. So build those relationships with businesses, corporation, local government entities, different politicians. Like, listen, I know people say, oh, I don't like politics. That's what, get over your feelings and go talk to these people. Because they're the ones that are on the front line, helping put policies together for your city or wherever you're living. Go talk to these folks. Because oftentimes you're able to advocate for things you believe in and have conversations with them that they didn't even think about. So go talk to these people, have conversations, go to your city council meetings, speak, use the time to actually speak on an issue that's important to your nonprofit organization. Have these conversations because if you're only focused on how to get through 2025, you're going to be stuck in the same place in 2026. So I'm going to need you to start thinking about ways to bring stability in the way that you're generating revenue for your organization so you can have predictable income. Okay. And now the second thing that you're going to need within your nonprofit organization to scale and not be stuck is building long-term relationships with donors and funders. I know I was talking about relationships just now. So donors are also people that you need to build long-term relationships with because a lot of nonprofits, what's happening is they're failing to retain their donors. Like what that means is that they have to start from scratch every year. Because let's say John donated in 2024 and 2025, you can't find John because John doesn't want to pick up your call. John didn't hear from you all 2024. Why is he going to talk to you in 2025? Because you all only hit John up when you need money. So now you're going to have to find someone new. So building these long-term relationships is important. So if John donated, continually have conversations with John. Update him on, or I'm just using John as a name because that's just easy for me to remember. Okay. So like update John on what's going on with the organization and like keep him up to date because like studies are going to show that 60% of first-time donors, they never give again because nonprofits do not properly engage with them after their first gift. Like the thank you is just a generic receipt. They don't hear from you. They feel like you didn't appreciate what they did. Like I know that sounds like a lot, but guess what? People work hard for their money. Okay? Even if it's money that was passed down, they work hard. They had to smile for it. Okay? So you need to find a way to say thank you to this person and make them feel appreciated because they didn't have to give you a dime. People don't owe you a thing. So pick up the phone, like call them. Like, hey, John, I saw you made a donation. We are so thankful for this donation. Like, this is what we're gonna be able to do. And like maybe if you don't talk to him next month, call him again. Always reach out and add him to your email list so when you have an impact report, he also gets it. Okay? Now, when you have strong donor retention strategies, you can actually raise about 55 more annually because you're not just relying on new acquisition alone. This is actually data that's verified by Network for Good. Like, it makes a difference when you're focusing on donor retention strategies. Okay, so really consider retaining your donors. Now, third thing that you can do, you need to start tracking key growth metrics because if you don't track it, you cannot grow it. So if you're not tracking key numbers, then you have no idea what's working, what's wasting your time, how much money you actually need to hit your goals, and what activities drive the most funding. So you need to have a way to start tracking how you are generating revenue and what's happening within your organization because this data, this piece of information will go a long way in helping you fundraise long term and making your organization more sustainable. Okay. Now, when your nonprofit is able to consistently track and analyze your data, you can actually raise more than double the revenue than those that don't. Okay, so that's one thing I want you to remember. Now, the other thing, if you're using data to refine your fundraising strategies, you can increase your donor retention rates as well. Okay, because then you don't want to you don't want to be spending hours on social media, falling in that social media black hole, just posting, assuming that's where your donors are gonna come from. Because I kid you not, like I don't care if this person is watching this video on replay. There is, because then a lot of people connect with me, but I will tell you there are a few people. I'm not calling out anyone, but if it is you, I want you to get your act together. Do not come to my DMs. Just I don't know a thing about your organization. I see no impact, and you're gonna tell me donate. Donate what? What am I donating to? Your rent? What am I donating to? Because imagine if I have this question, how many donors actually have this question about your organization as well? Like, you need to have intention behind everything that you're doing. And I need you to start realizing that, actually tracking your data so you can like start moving things. Okay, start reallocating your efforts and focus on building an email list. Okay, so if you're posting on social media, share stories, share impact. And instead of telling people to donate, hey, we'd love to continue updating you on stories like these, join our email list. Like, because if you want to grow, you need to be tracking your progress. You need to be adjusting your strategy and you need to focus on what's actually going to move the needle, period. Okay. Now, if your nonprofit feels like it's been in a hamster wheel for a long time, right? Always having inconsistent funding, staying stuck in the same level year after year, it's time to actually build a system that works. Now, the best way to work with me is actually to book a strategy session. Now, strategy sessions, it's a 90-minute session where we sit down and talk about the actions that you need to take within the next 3 to 6 months to start moving the needle. What actions you actually need to take within that time to actually start moving your nonprofit in the right direction. Now, either like even if you want to hire me on retainer as a consultant for your organization, I would say this is the best place to start because after the strategy session, if you want to continue working with me, we can apply whatever the strategy session fee was, which is $597 towards your retainer, your first month's retainer. So definitely the best way to start working with me. And if you're ready to move from just survival mode, which is what most nonprofits are doing, to actually building a level of sustainability within your organization, let's get to work. I'm going to put the link to book a strategy session in the comments. Definitely let me know if you have any questions. It is my time to go. I don't think I have any more left in me to keep being here. It is what, 8:16. I want to go to sleep. So if you have any questions, definitely let me know. I might not go to sleep, but I need to go lay down. I hope you have an amazing night, an amazing evening. Thank you for catching, and thank you, Keisha, for being here live. And whew, everybody catching the replay, I hope you're having a good one. Bye, y'all.